Hi, this is Arina McWilliam Lopez from 1623 Studios, and I'm joined today by Patty Hall from H20 for Life Schools. And we are going to hear a little bit of a different story, not necessarily a local story on the North Shore, but an incredible story about how teachers across the United States, teachers and students, are taking a massive challenge of lack of access to water and doing incredible things. So this is an inspiring story of hope in the face of major challenges. So Patty Hall, first of all, we'd love to hear about how you got started
Yeah.
with this initiative.
Well, thanks for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share what we do. And H2O for Life Schools engages, educates, and inspires youth through service learning. So our real focus is to get kids to figure out that the service that they do can truly change the world. And we do that through a platform that provides educational tools to learn about the global water crisis. And then students in their classrooms choose a partner school somewhere in the world, and it can be in Africa, Central America, Asia, and it can also be in the United States. So there's a lot of places around the world that don't have access to clean, drinkable water, don't have access to toilets and hand washing stations. So it's really an important issue for kids to embrace.
And you have a background in education. Can you tell us a little bit about, from that perspective of having a background in education, what is service learning in sort of how does it integrate with the main curriculum and why is it so important?
That's a great question because I think a lot of times people don't understand what it is. And what service learning strives to do is to connect what kids are learning in their classrooms with some action that actually is going to lead to change. You can do lots of things in your classroom, and I'll tell you one quick story on how one teacher really framed that up for me. But I started because I had been to Africa many times, specifically to Kenya. And a friend of mine that I met there wrote me a note toward the end of my teaching career and said, "Our kids are dying because they don't have access to water. Can you help?" And I thought about the 800 middle school kids at my school and decided that I'd give it a try. And I had never done any fundraising in my classroom. It was scary, but I decided to give it a try. And the kids raised $13,000 that helped build a sand dam for this community that 12 years later still provides water to that community. So it was an amazing project. And I think what kids learned is that through their actions, they could truly have an impact around the world. And that was really important. And I had a teacher that I met at a conference. His name is Chris Heffernan from Illinois. And he stopped at our booth and we were trying to tell people about what we do and encourage them to take on a project. And he went back to his classroom and was doing his unit on global studies and talking to kids about the dire consequences of the global water crisis. 844 million that don't have access to water and 2 billion that don't have access to toilets. And he said he could see his kids with this kind of shock and, oh my gosh, how can people live like that? And he kind of went, okay, I'm ready to go on to something else, and turned back. And a gal said, but Mr. Heffernan, what can we do about it? And that spurred him to pull up the card that he'd gotten from us, give us a call, take on a project. And he has been a premier teacher for about 8 years. And just think of the kids that he has impacted in those 8 years by getting his entire school involved in a walk for water to raise funds for someone else.
That's incredible. And from what I think a lot of us are seeing is this young generation of kids are constantly saying, what can I do about it? So that's very inspiring. So this pandemic has, brought about health challenges, but I think, a big theme that a lot of us have seen is inequality. And so, for young people, that's, that's this huge intersection of trying to figure that out. Could you tell us a little bit about, some examples of H2O for Life schools of how this intersection of, bridging social equality with these health challenges of COVID, what has that looked like?
Well, we had one school, for instance, that was studying the Navajo Nation in their social studies class in high school. And the teacher happened upon the Today Show video that was showing that the Navajo Nation had the highest incidence of COVID infections due to the fact that they don't have running water in their homes and that they don't have places to wash their hands, over 40%, which was an astounding statistic that he said, I had no idea. And I showed this video to my students and I thought, what can we do? And the kids came up with a tagline that they call themselves White Bear Nation. It's a white bear school where I live. And they said, White Bear Nation, hashtag Navajo Nation, hashtag One Nation. And the kids set out to make videos to challenge other students to get involved in this campaign. And over the course of about 2 weeks, they raised $3,500 that went directly to the Navajo Nation under our partner Dig Deep, George McGraw, who's doing amazing work on the Navajo Nation. And the kids shared over 75 videos online of actions that they were going to take to change this unequal access to water for the Navajo Nation. So it was pretty amazing that kids really embraced it and got involved and did something that is helping people who don't have equal access to have some access to water. And there's lots of incidences of that in the US as well, way more than I ever thought. Typically, we work in the global South, and we work in Africa and Asia and East in India, different places around the world, but we're all part of the globe. So we decided that some of our focus also should be within the United States where people don't have water.
That's incredible because, you had mentioned in the beginning service learning. This is extremely comprehensive learning. These children are learning, the purpose and I think the sort of return that, service can provide, but also just these incredible lessons on, how different countries are developed, both in our own neighborhoods and all around the world. So that is really inspiring. And we'd love to hear about, what's next. There's a lot of ambiguity for, whether students are going to be in the classrooms coming up next fall. What are you looking at for when school resumes?
Yeah, I think it's very challenging, not only for organizations such as ours, but it's also challenging for teachers. I have a daughter and son-in-law who are teachers, and they find that really getting kids engaged and excited about learning when you're not personally standing in front of them is difficult. So they're looking for good materials that hook kids, 3-minute videos, powerful stories, different things like that. So what we're trying to do is provide those. So we're working really hard to create new videos. For instance, we're talking with all of our non-governmental organization partners and trying to get them to answer the questions that a teacher might ask. Why did you choose that place to work? What are you doing in that school? How is it really going to change things? And connecting those with kids through curriculum that goes alongside it so that they're learning the standards that they need to learn in school, but they're also learning to be good citizens, civically engaged, and hopefully global citizens for the future.
And for our local teachers on the North Shore, how might they get involved with H2O for Life schools?
I invite them to visit our website, h2oforlifeschools.org. We have a comprehensive program K through 12. It's divided elementary, middle school, high school, and it's divided by the category that they teach. So a social studies teacher can find a variety of lesson plans that go directly with their curriculum. We provide the platform that they can do online fundraising. They build a page for their school. We build it, we manage it for them. And it's a pretty easy way to do service learning that would be really difficult if you were taking it on by yourself. And I think one of the biggest things that we did from the beginning was we connected ourselves with wonderful non-governmental organizations that implement the projects. I don't know anything about implementing water sanitation and hygiene projects in the US or worldwide. And working with these partners that are just amazing and are continuing their work through the most difficult of circumstances. Just imagine if you lived in rural Kenya and you had no access to water, sanitation, or hygiene. It truly changes your life. And providing that at schools allows students to access those facilities, educate their families, and it truly is changing communities. So I think our US kids can see that just taking action truly changes the world. You see that with what they're doing all over the internet right now with all the campaigns and causes that they're supporting.
It's incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always just incredible to hear about this emerging generation that's really, I would say, hope exemplified in the form of action. And this platform is an incredible way for them to do that. So I think last question, would love to just hear what age groups what age groups of students are getting involved in H2O for Life schools?
We work elementary through high school, and we do have a variety of all of them. I think middle school is probably our largest target market just because they're not yet involved in the varsity sports or working, and they're so socially justice minded that they really want to change the world. And I think that's important. And another thing that we really have talked about in our organization is this is not a program just for wealthy schools that can raise funds. This is a project for anybody because we do offer the opportunity for schools that maybe have lower income and not as many resources to kick it off, to apply for small grants, to purchase materials or whatever they need to help get them started. And an example is a school in Chicago that had 98% free and reduced lunch. They applied for $500, created a school store, and at the end of the year, were able to raise $5,000 to donate to a project. So we never want to say everybody can't participate in this because they can.
Absolutely. Well, Patty, thank you so much for joining us and giving us updates on H2O for Life schools. So inspiring to hear about it.
Well, thanks, Serena, for inviting me here today. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.